And welcome, brothers and sisters. This is Adam with Parable of the Vineyard, and welcome you to Kanye West, What You Need to Know. And joined here with Brother Justin at Christian Truthers. Brother, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, bro. Welcome. Welcome everybody, and thanks for having me back on, brother. And very, very important, powerful, huge topic. It may even be underestimated by the body right now. So very, very glad that y'all brought us together to talk about this tonight or today.
Yeah, same here, brother. Same here. I missed you. So it sometimes it takes something, a topic this important, for things
Amen.
to come back together. So,
Amen.
anyways, and I have to say, I honestly didn't even want to talk about this topic when this started coming up, becoming mainstream news the last couple weeks. I really honestly wanted nothing to do with it. I could have cared less, but we both started seeing the division in the body, and we're seeing just this polar opposite going on. We're seeing a crowd that's like all for him and just, encouraging. And we're seeing, another side that's like, hey, let's have some discernment here. Let's see what's going on. Let's take a look at the fruits and see what's going on here. So this is what we want to do today, is really not so much dig into the past, but I think at the same time we have to at least understand what the past was. Because, let's be honest, if you or I were an openly satanic and all this kind of, people would need to test us and to see what our fruits and see if we had a true conversion and those kind of things. So this is what we're going to do today. The focus is going to be on current stuff. While we are going to bring up some things in the past as a reference, this is really going to be a focus on what's going on right now. So I want to start off with a few scriptures and kind of lead into what we're talking about here. So John 7:24 says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." And so while a lot of us will pick out certain verses that says, judge not, if you read that entire passage, it actually does encourage us to judge with righteous judgment and judging by fruits. That's what we're going to do today. I also want to read Matthew 7:13-20. "Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat." So we have to understand, when the world embraces something, when you see the mass of people going towards something, that's typically kind of a warning for us, like, hey, this may not be, because it says that many, and when we look at the definition of many, it means the most. "Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few be there that find it." So again, just going with the masses is typically not what we need to be doing. "Now beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." Satan knows what he's doing. He's not going to come to us dressed in red with a pitchfork and a tail. He's going to come to us as a messenger of light. "Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every tree bringeth forth good fruit." And we're going to talk a lot about this here in a little bit. "But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire." And again, this is what Yeshua, our Messiah, told us, is that, "Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." So when people are like, "Oh, you fruit inspector," well, actually, we are called to be fruit inspectors. We're supposed to judge each other and know each other by our fruits, what is being said, what comes out of our mouth. And that's something that we're going to be talking a lot about today. A couple more verses. Galatians 2:9. Before I read this, a lot of people that are for believing that Kanye has a true conversion and those kind of things, I'm seeing like, hey, they give an example as Paul. They're like, hey, Paul was a murderer, and he's all. I agree. He was a bad dude, and he was totally converted. But here, let's read this real quickly, and let's discern this. Galatians 2:9 says, "And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the circumcision." So let's look at this word "perceive" real quick, because James, Cephas, and John had to perceive what was going on with Paul. Perceive means to become aware of, know, or identify by means of the senses. to recognize, to discern, envision, and understand. So they had to discern that Paul was a changed man. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is discerning, perceiving, and again, taking a look at the fruits. And lastly, and I'm going to hand it over to Justin, we got quite a bit to go over today, is, the Ezekiel 33 call, the watchman call. Almost all of us are called to be watchmen today. If we see danger, if we see something going on, it's our duty. So let me read this real quick and I'm going to be quiet. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, and that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to warn. If the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but the blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, you, son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word at my mouth and warn them from me. So this is what we're going to be doing today. And Justin, I'm going to hand it over to you, my brother.
Amen. Yeah, and on this same idea, the biblical principle of using discernment and testing fruit, you mentioned the apostles when they first encountered Paul, and that actually reminded me of Acts 9:26. Because it says that the apostles were actually afraid of Paul when they first saw him. It says, And when he had come to Jerusalem, he attempted to join the disciples. However, they were all afraid of him, for they did not believe that he was a disciple. So this is something that we're seeing the 12, the original disciples, the ones who walked with Messiah. They responded a very similar way to hearing the news that this man was now on the right side of things and working for the gospel. They were afraid at first. And so not saying they were afraid that the enemy would triumph over them per se, but afraid that he was just a false convert, a deceiver, something of that nature. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we have the same type of reasons the disciples had to ask the same type of questions, to have the same type of hesitancy towards Kanye, considering not just his past, but also what he's talking about and going through right now. And the second thing we want to talk about, we're going to go through quite a bit of stuff here, but we will talk a little bit about his past, but only those things that actually are relevant. So yes, anybody can go look up, they can Google Kanye West satanic stuff, and they'll find just as many pictures as they want of him participating in all kinds of strange concerts and photo ops and all this stuff. That's true. And if someone's repentant of those things, then that's it's not something that we should focus too much on. However, if there's a distinct relevance to what exactly he was doing and how he was doing it and what he was saying that he was going to do in the future, if we can look at the things that he said he was going to do, then they definitely apply to today. And we are seeing the application of the things he hinted at and was showing us beforehand now being applied today. So in that sense, we do need to look at some of those things. So the first thing that I wanted to ask everybody, when I first heard about the news of this, and Adam and I talked a little bit back and forth via text, and just kind of, he was actually wondering what are your thoughts about all this? Because I'm actually getting some really mixed feedback from people, and not just from like the general, Christian public, but from people that we know and we care about and we have been worshiping with. And there's some conflict there, and I'll let Adam, tell us about his first, impression here. But for me, I immediately went and watched all of his interviews, his most recent interviews. I watched the one he did with Beats One, and I watched the whole one that he did with what's the other guy? I can't remember his name. There's one he did with Beats One and one he did with Big Boy's Neighborhood, the two biggest ones we're seeing right now. And I watched all of it, and I wanted to hear what comments he was making anywhere else on online. And I can see right away why it would be so difficult for so many people, without question. Despite the fact that it was within my discernment to immediately say, hey, obviously there's an agenda here, which we're about to talk about very first and foremost. Despite that, I'm like, but listen to him. He sounds pretty good. I mean, how'd you feel about it, Adam?
Yeah, I agree. And you said it well. I watched the same interviews too. Again, I had no intentions of really getting into any of this because I've been so detached from the music industry. I mean, goodness, probably about 6-7 years I've been detached from the music industry. So I'm so far removed from that, from even caring about these people and what they're doing and their all this kind of stuff. But you said it yourself. It was when people that were very close to us that I know have good discernment were being kind of swept away with this, and that's when I'm like my alarm bell started going on, saying, all right, who is this guy? Is he truly converted? What's going on here? Is he preaching the truth, or is he leading people astray as the Pied Piper? So just like you, I watched tons of interviews, and what I'm going to be doing today, kind of the biggest part I want to play today is. There was that I don't know if it's at the Beats interview, is the one that was at his house in Montana. Yeah. That one I watched very carefully and listened to his words, and because like a lot of people have said, is like, if he's truly converted, we don't need to focus too much on the past, which I did want to look into because I really didn't know. I didn't know too much about Kanye West, and I was actually very surprised at how much stuff he'd really done, with the statues and I didn't even know that he had a book where he changed the scriptures for his name. I didn't know all that stuff, so I was overwhelmed, and I was really kind of concerned, like brothers and sisters, like why wouldn't we have some concern here? Kind of like how we opened it up with Galatians 2:9 with and like you said, the apostles at first were like I don't know about this guy, until they discerned and they saw what was coming out of his mouth, to finally be like, hey, okay, this guy's legitimate. So that's what we wanted to do, is like, hey, is this guy legitimate? And there was quite a bit on that interview, and a couple of my brothers that watched that same interview, it kind of went right over their head. And unfortunately, I think when people start listening to his music and start liking it, they start becoming a respecter of person. And I think, a layer of blindness kind of goes over. So we hope to, for those of you that have, had some discernment and are questioning this, we're, probably going to reinforce a lot of those things that you may already be aware of. And hopefully for some of you that think he may be a true convert, we've got some things that we really, really want to share with you, for you to take into consideration when making a final decision, whether to follow the footsteps of this man or to go the other way. And so that's kind of where we're at today.
Amen. And they are saying in the chat that there's the video and audio are out of sync. Do you want to see if refreshing will fix that out there in the chat?
Okay. Let me see here.
I think the audio is ahead of the video. I don't know if you want to just push, or see if we can do something. Quick.
Let me close some of these tabs. Okay, we should be good now.
Okay, all right. So it's interesting how when these type of topics come up, that seem like they are very complicated, and it actually can be very complicated if we forget the basics, right? We have to be brilliant in the basics at all times. And so, honestly, although I did go watch the interviews, and I actually did want him to be, a genuine convert. I want him to be a genuine man of Yah, and I want him to promote the true gospel. But the first thing that was a huge red flag for me, which kind of surprised me that not many more have kind of picked up on this, is just the very fact that we know, all of us who've come through this journey of truth and have done lots of research and just really dug in for the last several years, we know that people don't make it onto the world stage on accident. They don't make it onto the world stage organically. It's not within the power of an individual to just drop an album and have the whole world accept it. In fact, when the whole world is accepting something, that should actually give us pause. So the first question I wanted to ask everybody is to remember and ask ourselves, who is the God, the lowercase g, the God of this world? Well, the scriptures tell us that the world has fallen into the power and the influence of Hasatan, the enemy. John 12:31 actually says, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out." So he's talking about a time in the future when the prince of this world will be cast out. So right now we see his influence everywhere. There's lots of corroborating scripture here. We're going to go to 1 John 5:19. "We know that we are of Yahuwah, and the whole world lieth in wickedness." Another version says, "The whole world lies in the power of the evil one." And then Ephesians 2:2, it tells us, "Wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience." Again, just another huge allusion to the enemy's sway over the whole earth, specifically the air, which is interesting when we think about airwaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then last, I want to touch on John 14:30. It says, "Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me." Another version says, "I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has no claim on me." So just 101 stuff. We have to return to and remember that literally the entirety of the media, of what we see and experience in the mainstream, the entirety of what is supported and encouraged and promoted by the world is under the control of the enemy. These are not things that happen accidentally. These are things that are planned and released on purpose. We know this. This is very very common knowledge among those who have really done a truth or search. The next question I want to ask is, who is known specifically to lead the earth astray through the use of music? And again, this touches on just probably 1,000 different points of research that we've probably done, not just on this channel, but on many, many other channels. Starting off with just touching on Ezekiel 28, we don't have to pull it up, but the idea that Lucifer himself was actually made out of musical instruments. Mm-hmm. We actually see him using his musical deceptions in the first book of Adam and Eve. He's known for this. We have just hundreds of reports of artists coming out and talking about how they sold their soul to the devil. They say it both in their lyrics and in their actual interviews, where they're sitting down and being very direct and honest. Speaking of which, this is just kind of a side note here. Kanye West, right before his mental breakdown last year, one of the last things he did was go on a freestyle rant and say that he sold his soul to the devil. So we've seen a lot of that all through rock and roll, hip hop, everywhere. People saying they sold their soul to the devil in order to achieve power, influence, fame, whatever. We see the same type of statements coming from celebrities in acting and all other realms of entertainment. Artists also have been known to claim they use automatic writing. So you can look up testimonies of famous rock stars who will say that they just were tripping on acid or drunk out of their mind or whatever, and they channeled some spirit, and the spirit told them what to write, and that's how they wrote X, Y, or Z song. Again, this isn't. I'm not going to sit here and provide all the details of this stuff. This is stuff that you guys already know. At least you should already know. And if you don't, then there's a lot of research ahead of you to get caught up. We know about backwards masking, right? How the industry has historically implanted hidden messages within music that are backwards, and you don't hear them when they're played forward necessarily, but it's one of the tenets of the Church of Satanism and Anton LaVey to do everything backwards. And so the music industry has adopted that principle and applied it to their records. And you can play some of this music backwards and hear very clear satanic messages coming from all different realms of the industry: pop, rock, rap. It doesn't even matter. It's everywhere. You can even find it in some of the speeches of politicians. And then if you guys haven't seen the testimony, I can't remember where exactly it was posted. I'll have to find it later and put it in the chat or link in the comments below later. But if you guys can recall, there's this understanding that for the longest time during a period of rock and roll, the 80s and 90s, and maybe it still continues today, they would actually take the master, basically the key record, the master record, the one that will be used to make all the other records of a new album, and they would actually take it up into the Freemasonic headquarters at MTV, which we will show you a picture of in a minute here. and they would actually perform a ritual over the master and
Mm-hmm.
dedicate the master, and they would ask spirits to go into the master and use it to influence the country and the kids and the families across the United States with the album. So this is coming from testimonies of people who are inside the industry and came out of the industry. So that's just the question I have to ask: who owns the music industry? I'm not specifically pointing out anything about Kanye right now, but the idea is first who owns the world, and then who owns the music industry. You know, we're gonna talk about right now the big three. For example, we have Sony, Time Warner, and Universal, otherwise known as IMG Media. And yeah, right there, that's actually you're seeing on the screen. Lucian Grange is actually the CEO of Universal Media, which is who Def Jam Records, which Kanye West is signed under. Def Jam Records is actually owned by Universal Media. The CEO of Universal Media is heavily tied back into the British royal family. If you Adam, actually, if you scroll down to the bottom there, I think maybe it's in the awards, or I think it's an awards section or something like that near the bottom.
Okay.
Honors and achievements.
Let's see.
Go up a little bit. Yeah, he was okay. So here we go. Second paragraph right there. Grange was appointed commander of the Order of the British Empire in the 2010 New Year's Honor for Services. He was appointed a British business ambassador by the UK Prime Minister, and he was knighted in the 2016 birthday honors for services to British business. So when you have someone connected back to the royal family, again, we're not going to lay that out for you in this video. It's stuff that you guys should already know by now. And if you don't, then start jumping into looking at why we would say it's bad business to be controlled by the royal family. The point I'm making is not that Kanye hangs out with Prince William or anything like that. That's not the connection I'm trying to make. I'm trying to remind everybody of who really owns everything in the sphere of music. There's only 3 major labels. They own all the smaller labels, including Def Jam Records, who Kanye released with. And
the most recent record, right? The Jesus is King. Okay.
Jesus is King is released under Def Jam Records, and we're going to look at some of the other artists Def Jam. Actually, you can pull them up right now. There's a website on Ranker that talks about, it shows all the different artists that are currently signed under Def Jam Records. So, and again, why am I bringing this up? Why am I saying this? To demonstrate that it's not about Kanye can't organically just decide he wants to up and talk about Jesus and then get past Universal, get past Apple, get past ABC, get past all these ones that completely control and manipulate our media, and just do whatever he wants and talk about Jesus because he feels like it. Obviously, they have given their blessing. They're allowing this to occur. They're putting him on bigger and bigger shows. So what were you going to say, Adam?
No, I'll just say, what am I looking for here on Ranker?
Oh, maybe that's the wrong link. Can you scroll down a little bit? Is it not right? Maybe that's the wrong link here. I'm sorry. There's a list of all the different artists. Oh, there's a link in the document. Did you see it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see.
It's all good.
Oh, I apologize. There we go.
It's all good. So here's a list of the other artists on Def Jam Records. This is who Jesus is King was published through. Okay. There's hundreds. We're not going to have time to go through all of them, obviously, but take a look. You probably recognize some people from your past life. 112. Ashanti, a bunch of rappers, a bunch of gangster rappers. There you go, Beastie Boys, Big Crit, Big Sean. This is the worldliest of the worldly. They primarily promote hip hop albums, and many of these artists have put out all kinds of satanic and borderline satanic stuff. This is what is usually going down at Def Jam Records. This is what they normally produce and pay for and promote, is all of this stuff, right? It just goes on and on. In fact, Kanye, I think he's all the way down at 104 on the list here. But unfortunately, you guys might recognize some of these old artists. There you go, 103, Kanye West. So you're seeing that in order for someone to drop a Jesus is King album that does nothing but praise and promote Jesus, you got to get permission, not just from Def Jam Records, but also from who Def Jam Records is owned by, right? Which is Universal Media. And they have a very tight grasp and a very tight grip on what they are putting out to the world. And they have a very good timing on it. And they have, of course, an agenda. You can see how the different forms of music, how they evolved through the 1900s, have also created an evolution of society, influencing people, the way they think, what they believe, how they feel. This is something that we should be aware of already, right? The music industry at large is completely consumed and controlled by the big three and by the world, by the prince of the power of this world specifically. So let's go to some more recent stuff. You don't want to pick on Def Jam Records, okay? Even though I guess Def Jam just randomly decided that they wanted to start preaching the gospel all of a sudden, and their bosses and bosses were okay with that, all the way back up to the royal family. That's fine. That's part of the agenda, I guess. It's fine for them to just preach the gospel. All right, let's go on next to Jimmy Kimmel. I want to talk about that because the next question I have for everybody is, who owns Jimmy Kimmel? Who owns The View? Who owns Beats One? And who owns Big Boy's Neighborhood, which is the last two, Beats One and Big Boy's Neighborhood, are the names of the two people who did those long interviews that you guys should be familiar with by now if you watched that. Actually, if you weren't, you can go ahead and pull up the next link there. All right, so the world's acceptance of Kanye's new conversion and interest and his ability to actually conduct these interviews and get aired across all these platforms is something that should cause us to immediately stop and ask ourselves, what's the catch? Why are they doing this? Why are they allowing it? What's the agenda? And why are they doing it? Why are they airing this? So this is interesting here because we find out when we look into this. This is the interview that Adam was talking about earlier. I think it's out in Wyoming at one of his properties. This fellow, Zane Lowe, who actually works for Beats One, went out to do this long, really well-produced interview with Kanye at his ranch. So I just wanted to point out that I think it's interesting that instead of bringing Kanye on Dateline, or whatever, Fox or whatever, which I'm sure they will, we're probably going to get there. It's just it hasn't happened yet. I think it's interesting that they use people like Zane Lowe, who on a world stage is not very well known. And I think there's even sort of a reason for that as well, because it gives us the impression that Kanye's rise to fame is organic, that it's something of a grassroots campaign, that, yeah, Kanye's not going to get to just go straight out to BET and talk about this. He's going to have to start with YouTubers and smaller folks first and see if they accept him. And it's kind of going to kind of grow organically that way from small to big. But the reality is Zane Lowe is owned by Apple Music. This entire interview was produced and put together by Apple Music. Apple Music did this, right? They just didn't tell you that. They just don't put it in your face. This is something that, again, should cause us concern. So you're telling me that out of the blue, Kanye starts doing Sunday services and talking about Jesus, and Apple Music wants to pick him up and promote it?
Right.
Is that normal? Is that something that the world would do for our benefit, for the benefit of the gospel? That doesn't seem like it's part of what we understand to be truth. We know that when they put something out, when Apple puts something out, they have a really good reason for it, right? And we know that they're not giving people over there at Apple. Am I right? I mean, everyone that has an Apple product or has had to get one fixed or has had to deal with Apple customer service or has seen the way Apple operates, they're about profit. They're not about gospel. Right. So next, let me take you to Big Boy's Neighborhood. It's the other interview you guys probably saw. I think that one's over an hour as well. Just to get you a picture so you can see that guy. There he is right there. And that's it right there on their homepage of their YouTube channel, Kanye West, Big Boy TV. Again, you kind of see the use of, yes, this DJ and his team are like nationally syndicated. They're picked up all over the place. But I wouldn't say that Big Boy TV is like a home, like a home name, right? Everyone doesn't know who Big Boy TV
Right.
is. Am I right?
Right.
Is that, yeah. So again, I think it tries to give the appearance that something organic is happening here. Something small is happening that just blew up. And so it's like, oh, he's not showing up on, um, you know, the biggest shows yet. He's just showing up on these smaller YouTube channels. No, think again. Big Boy's Neighborhood is owned by iHeartMedia, one of the largest national broadcasting syndicates in the world. All right, a multi-billion-dollar company. That's who owns Big Boy Media. That's who pays him. That's who promotes his channel and does his stuff. So iHeartMedia is actually the ones who promoted Big Boy's Neighborhood interview with Kanye. So now you got what looks like it's something small and organic that's just beginning to grow out of nowhere, when in reality we're finding out that Apple and iHeartMedia are working together, or at least at the same time, to both push this Kanye stuff. So again, you have to ask yourself, why in the world would they do that, right? You got iHeartMedia up already.
Mm-hmm.
Next, let's talk about Jimmy Kimmel real quick. Okay, this one is what's really interesting to me. So Jimmy Kimmel, he went on Jimmy Kimmel Live just the other day, and let's back up again. Okay, so who controls the world? Who controls the music industry? Who controls the different, even the different influencers out there who are now talking about Kanye? Who controls those people? We can see these things really easy to look up. Really surface level research tells you who owns who and who's really promoting what, right? But then we kind of break out of the mold, and he shows up on Jimmy Kimmel Live, right? And Jimmy Kimmel literally stands there and lets Kanye speak for quite a few minutes about Jesus Christ, Jesus is King, the album, which is I believe that may be a first in entertainment history. If you guys can correct me and send me a link to another time in the last 50 years where a celebrity who converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ was invited on to a late night show, a live show like this, and gave him free floor to just preach for 10 minutes. If you could send me a link to that, I would like to see, because I think this is a first for that.
Quite the opposite. Last thing I remember, a lot of people have seen this, is the football player Ben Watson, when he was on, I think it was on Fox or MSNBC. Either way, he started talking about Messiah, and they cut him off. So I'm like Justin. It's like, hey, we want to be like, hey, this is a move from the Most High, bringing people to Messiah. But is it bringing people to the true Messiah, or is it bringing people to this is what I'll be talking about a little bit later, is the anti-Messiah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just right there on this page, we see right there Jimmy Kimmel Live, second sentence. The nightly hour-long show made its debut January 26, 2003 at Hollywood Masonic Temple. Go ahead and click on that real quick. This is where Jimmy Kimmel Live is hosted every night, every week, or whenever they do it. I don't even know when they air. It's in a Masonic temple. No hiding it. It's not a secret. It's a giant Masonic temple. And actually, if you dig into that temple and the architect of that temple, the guy who built that temple also built a bunch of other projects for other secret societies around the same area, as well as the Chinese theater that they use all the time for these huge award shows and stuff. All that stuff was many of those things were designed and built by the same guy. It's interesting when you read about the Masonic temple here. They say that they stopped using it as a temple in 1982 because the membership was declining. I find it hard to believe that membership in Hollywood was declining. Forgive me for my skepticism, but again, if we've done our research and we really know how things work, that should be the most popular building in Hollywood. And in fact, it is. It is one of the most popular buildings in Hollywood. They continue to use it. The reality of the situation is they just changed their approach. The people that own that building have just changed their approach and how they're going to use it and how they're going to influence people.
Did you see right here who bought it? It says until it was bought by the Walt Disney Company's Buena Vista Pictures distribution in 1998.
Wow. Speaking of Disney, I'm glad you brought that up, bro. Check out. So Jimmy Kimmel's on ABC, right? American Broadcasting Company. So again, it wasn't just Jimmy Kimmel as a host was like, hey, you know what? I'm Catholic. I really like this Kanye thing that's going on. I'm going to just sporadically bring him on the show and let him talk about Jesus is king for a few minutes because I have the power to do that. If you think that's the way it works, then you've completely misunderstood and underestimated the way this actually works. Broadcasting and production of these shows actually works. They're highly organized, scripted, and planned out long in advance. It wasn't just Jimmy Kimmel that needed to want to have Kanye on. It was the show's producers and directors would need to want to have Kanye on. It would also be ABC would want to have Kanye on. And even farther than that, we see right there, it would actually have to be Disney. Walt Disney actually owns ABC. So now we have Walt Disney, Apple, iHeartMedia, and all these subsidiaries of those companies working together to promote Jesus is King. I'm sorry, but it looks like acceptance of the world in a way that literally should just cause all of us to go, wait a second.
Pump those brakes.
Wait a second. Why are they doing this? This doesn't make any sense. These are the same companies, the same people. Come on, guys. You guys have seen the research about Disney, right? You've watched the videos. You've done the reading. You've seen the evidence. Disney just constantly, without fail, continues to push all kinds of strange, sick, twisted sexual agendas on our children and on the adults in every kind of way. We've seen how Disney has used their stars to become music stars later. Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and many, many other who Disney raised up and turned them into these people, Miley Cyrus, who then end up completely switching over. We know how the agenda is to let kids be raised with kid celebrities, to be led by those kid celebrities, and then they flip, and all of a sudden they're Satanists, and all of a sudden, they're all dressing up like Jezebel in every sense of the word, not just in the sexual way, but also like in a spiritual way, looking like just doing straight satanic videos and terribly, terribly promiscuous and dark lyrics. They do this to get kids attached to these child stars, and then they flip the kids over and they throw their whole worldview for a loop. We know this stuff. This is the way it works. So we have to ask ourselves, why is Walt Disney doing this? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Speaking of Masonic Temple, since we're on the topic, I wanted to just show real quick the MTV headquarters building, and that you guys should already know this. Again, this should all be warm up and reminders for those of you who have been around for a while and have done your own research. The MTV headquarters building is, in fact, a Masonic temple. It says so right on the building. There's a placard there. You can walk up and read it. That's the building that we were talking about earlier. There was industry insiders coming out saying that they were performing rituals up on the top floor over the master of the records. So the music industry is wholly, completely, totally owned. It is owned. And if you can't see that yet, then I ask you to look into it more, because there's so much more. There's an unlimited amount of information. Although, to be honest with you, I mean, for example, we're going to talk about this book, the Book of Jesus, in a few minutes. But last week, I was looking up the book, looking for specific pictures on the Book of Jesus, pictures taken of the inside of the book that popped right up on Bing. And now I can't find those pictures on Bing anymore or Google. So the point I'm making is a lot of this information is going to be, we are starting to lose the flexibility and freedom to do our own research. So the time is running out. It really is, in terms of the door closing, in terms of our ability to see and hear and know and feed on truth before it is completely hidden and taken away and the doors close and the flood comes. All right, so the last thing I want to hit for this question, the question of who owns Jimmy Kimmel, who owns the music industry, is I wanted to show you the 6 companies that own almost all media in the entire world. So if you guys haven't seen this infographic before, it just demonstrates the 6 companies that own almost all media, books, movies, television, radio, everything. are listed right here. So we can see that literally just 6 men or 6 corporations. When you dig into these guys, I mean, it's just a ton of interesting stuff there as well. These people own every media outlet that we watch. Look, this guy, look, the same guy, Disney owns ABC, Marvel, Lucasfilm, who made Star Wars, ESPN, 123, ESPN News, Disney Junior, ABC Family, Vice. There's a
Pixar.
whole, what's that?
Pixar.
Yeah, Pixar. Yeah. Just
The History Channel. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. The Disney. So Disney owns the History Channel. It's interesting how Disney's involved in science and space often as well. Very interesting. So yeah, those are different publishing companies, really well-known book publishing companies, owned by Disney. Time Warner, another huge one. Yeah, they own CNN, HBO, CNN US, Cartoon Network, Hulu. I mean, just goes on and on and on. The amount of power and influence and control right there is just insane. So this is just my way of trying to remind you, brothers and sisters, to not forget from whence we came, right?
Exactly.
We were told to come out of her, right? To come out of her, my people. We're going to read that verse later. And we did. I hope you guys have, if you're listening to this, I hope you have done that already. I hope you've unplugged from the influence of these people, of these men, of these conglomerates, these organizations. I hope you've unplugged from them. I hope you've realized that they are just breeding you, programming you, feeding you what they want you to believe, to know, how they're telling you how to act, what's important, what's cool, what's valuable. This is all being controlled and manipulated on a worldwide scale. And guys, until you know that, until you see that, you can't really understand what it means when it says that the whole earth is under the deception of the prince of this world. Once you realize that, you can realize that we truly are a peculiar people who are called out of that to walk in holiness. And we cannot win out there. We can't win with their media, with their movies, with their channels. I'm not saying we shouldn't try. I support what Rob Skiba is doing. He's going to try and make his own version of publications that will wake up more people. And I'm all about that. I support
Same
that.
Here.
But we cannot, Kanye West can't just go from pure Satanism, which we're going to show you is what was going down, to Jesus is king, and have Apple and Disney and all these folks just get on board with that and help him out. You know, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
I agree. And, one thing, as far as another show, keep in mind also Kim Kardashian was on The View not too long ago talking about his conversion and all that kind of stuff. So we're really, really seeing this being pushed by the mainstream media, as you've shown very, very well.
Amen. Big time. So there's a connection there. So now, again, we only want to talk about what's relevant with Kanye, right? We don't really need to worry about his past relationships and stuff like that. We don't want to dig up we're not trying to dig up dirt on Kanye just for the sake of hurting his character, just to try and that's what's called a straw man argument. It would be dishonest of me to just be like, oh, well, he's got all these parking tickets and he slept with all these people. And
right.
That's not what we're doing here. We're not slinging mud here on past life stuff, right? But when it is relevant, right, then it becomes important. So I want to give you a quick example. I was talking to my wife about this the other night. When I was in high school, I used to actually be in drama, like the drama team, and I liked doing skits and stuff. And my drama teacher at my high school just was like sure that I should be an actor. He wanted me to be an actor. He wanted me to act. And I used to do these tests on people to see how gullible people would be. And it was really simple, honestly. I would tell them, I would say, look, I'm going to perform a test on you, okay? I'm going to see if I can convince you of a lie, right in front of your face, even though I just told you that I'm going to do it. Are you ready? So what I'm going to trick you into thinking that something is true that is completely false. Completely false. I'm going to do it in just a second here, right? Are you with me? Are you following me? And he's like, yeah, okay, all right, shoot. I'd be like, no, I'm just playing. That's, I kind of felt weird saying that, you know? I kind of felt like, ugh. I felt like I was like Satan himself or something. Like, I don't know. That's an exercise I was told to do, and I'm really not comfortable doing it. Never mind. I kind of just feel sick lying like that. Actually, forgive me. I've actually been struggling with being a compulsive liar like my whole life. So just forgive me for that. And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no problem, man, no problem." And I'd be like, "I just lied about all that. I know that's true. That whole thing was I wasn't feeling bad. I'm not a compulsive liar. You know, you can tell them to their face you're going to do this, and then do it right in their face, and they just think it's a joke. It's crazy.
Right.
You look at like KJ, right, Scariest Movie Ever channel. He's always talking about lesser magic, and that's the way in which the industry uses media and music and imagery to tell you what's going to happen. We see this with The Simpsons and stuff like that, right? Tons of movies pointing to references of 9/11 and stuff like that. We see this lesser magic, and it's basically where the enemy is telling you what he's going to do before he does it. And, you know, some people have theories that like he has to do that. Maybe that's part of the enemy's limitations, that he has to do it. I think he does it out of sheer pride. I think he gets a kick out of it.
I agree. I think it's the enemy's way of so we know Satan wants to be like the Most High. He said it himself, and we know that what is the Most High famous for is he tells things, what they happen before they happen. So this is his way of prophesying in his little world by predictive programming. Right.
Amen. So let's look at some of this stuff. Let's look at some of the evidences that pertain to Antichrist type behaviors. And yes, we went there. We're saying Antichrist. And I'm not saying he is the Antichrist. I'm not saying that. I'm saying these are Antichrist behaviors. So here we have the book of Jesus. It was released in March of 2015. Adam's got the website up on the board right there. You can literally go and buy a copy of the book of Jesus. It has the picture of Kanye West on the front there. And what they've gone and done, this is Kanye's book, what they've actually gone and done is they've made revisions through the book of Genesis. And every time the Genesis says the words God or Yeshua, and that's funny they use the word Yeshua there on the website, they replaced it with the word Kanye. And there's actually another picture. There's another link right under that one, Adam, where you can see inside the book. Actually, go ahead and scroll down for the bottom first, and let's take a look at that. All the places it was aired. There it is.
Oh yeah, I can
see
it right there.
Jesus. So I have a better picture and another link there of that page. We want to look at that real quick.
Let's see.
I mean, this guy wasn't just being a little rebellious, brothers and sisters. He was practically telling us that he is working for the Antichrist, and we're going to show that. All right. Yeah, there you go. The book of Jesus. What does it say there? It says, first it starts off with a quote from Kanye. Kanye says, "I am a God." Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was, a God. I just told you that's who I think I am. Chapter 1. In the beginning, Kanye created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the spirit of Kanye hovered above the face of the water. You see what's going on here? Literally.
And this is where I don't want to say I get frustrated, but I'm really concerned for brothers and sisters that are like, oh, Kanye said, he believes in Jesus. He even said the word Yeshua on one of his albums. Throw all this out. Don't even look at it. It's no big deal. Like, again, if you or I, Justin, rewrote the Bible and put our names in it, you don't think that everybody would look at us with a fine-tooth comb to make sure, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we could come back from that, bro.
No,
I mean, seriously.
I don't think so.
I mean, all right. So what kind of a person does this? What kind of a person does it? This is just 2015 March. So just just a little over 4.5 years ago, right? So you could say, oh, well, he might have changed a lot in the last 4 years. Well, maybe. Let's go look at the next evidence here. There's an idol of Kanye West as Jesus on Hollywood Boulevard. Now, something that we have to remember and be cognizant of is that they're always going to give us a reason why it's there, right? They're not going to be like, oh, we put an idol of Kanye here because we want to promote this Antichrist deception that's coming. They're not going to do that. They're going to say they have some really interesting, cool reason for doing that. And they're saying the idol represents Kanye because they're saying Kanye was singing all this Jesus walks with me stuff. And then he had a huge fall from grace and became, didn't upkeep his Christian values, and they're just making fun of Kanye West's fall from grace is what they're saying. But you mean to tell me that Kanye West and everybody in Hollywood's okay with a statue depicting Kanye as Jesus Christ? They're all cool with that just because they want to poke fun at Kanye? Mm-mm. I don't think so. I don't think so, bro. I mean, let's just look at it for what it is. It's a giant golden statue of Kanye. It's an idol. It's a false idol of Kanye. He wrote his own Bible, at least Genesis, and now we have a golden idol of Kanye on Hollywood Boulevard, probably not too far from the Masonic building where Jimmy Kimmel is filmed. All right. Next, take a look at the Rolling Stone cover. Again, this is relevant. This is relevant, brothers and sisters. I don't care if it happened 2 or 3 years ago. This is relevant because it's Kanye telling us that he thinks he is Jesus, that he is a God. He's telling us that he is intentionally willing to lead us away from the true Messiah and to himself instead. Okay, so he's always had an interest in the things of Jesus, at least in the way he talks. Like when did Jesus Walks come out? Like
2004, I think.
Yeah, 10 years ago when he was on the interview with who was it? Big Boy's Neighborhood, the second one we showed earlier. They played a recording of Kanye talking 10 years ago, where Kanye said that one day he was going to start a church. 10 years ago, and he's done all this Antichrist stuff since then. And then here he comes starting the church. Remember my example of the big lie, right? I'm going to tell you that I'm lying to you, and then I'm going to lie to you, and you're just going to think I'm not lying. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. All right. So yeah, Kanye depicted as Messiah on the cover of Rolling Stone. Again, it's relevant. I'm sorry if you don't think it is. It is. Next, we have a picture of Kanye's album cover, Jesus. Do I need to say anything?
I mean, look at that. I mean, this is why we have to have discernment, brothers and sisters. We can't just say, which he said that he's repented, but I haven't heard him say, I've repented for all this satanic stuff I've done, and for making a blasphemous Bible, and I mean all this kind of stuff. We haven't heard that, haven't seen it.
Yeah, man. This is not, this. I can hear the voices of people who are in just the biggest denial, ever. That they want to defend Kanye. Oh, well, let's go look at all your sins. I've already put mine out there. I've already apologized. My testimony is on my channel. You can go take a look at it. I told you what I've done. And I'll be honest with what I've done and struggled with. But I never claimed to be God. I never claimed to be the Messiah. I never rewrote the Bible. And if I had, I wouldn't come out and start a ministry right afterwards and expect everyone to accept me. It's the craziest thing in the world that we should even consider that what this man has to say is valuable to us as a people until he makes a world of changes. A lot of time has passed, and he's done a lot of proving. Until then, it looks like what it is, the Antichrist. Look at the upside-down cross right there.
Right.
The Antichrist. He combined Kanye, which is Ye, and Jesus to make Ye-zus. That's what that is. Let's take a look and see what the Church of Satan thinks about all this. Go to the next link there. The newest album that Kanye released, Jesus is King. We're finding out that the Church of Satan is pleased that Kanye West has released Jesus is King. Pleased. And if you read this to try and make a sense of why they're pleased with it, you'll see that all they're doing is mocking you to your face. Satan is the best friend Kanye has ever had, says the Church of Satan. Now, you can read through and look at the article. If you want to scroll down a little bit, there's some details there. But he doesn't really say or tell you and explain truly why they're saying they're pleased. They make a couple of little jokes, and they sent out a couple of tweets. They said, we're more pleased than anything. Only those who read our literature will get it.
It's right in our face. Right in our faces.
Right in your face. They're just telling you that they are pleased. Of course they're pleased. Look at what's going on, brothers and sisters. Right in your face. Right in your face.
Oh,
all right. Last thing. And yes, this, I'm telling you, if you say this isn't relevant because he did it last year, I don't care. You're wrong. It is relevant. It is relevant because he said he was going to do this 10 years ago. Actually, there's a link right there. His decade-old statement that he would one day start a church. He said this 10 years ago, and that idea and that talk has eventually led to him doing Sunday service, okay? So he's been planning this for a long time, brothers and sisters, a long time. So don't be surprised. And isn't it interesting that he would use a musician?
Right.
Yep.
Which that's actually one of the main points I want to talk about a little bit later is even back in the book of Daniel, it was the musicians, which we'll talk. I don't want to give it all away, but if you remember Nebuchadnezzar and the statue, when were they supposed to bow down to the statue? It was when they heard the musicians starting to play their instruments is when they had to do it. So isn't it interesting that here we are, that we've got musicians kind of pushing this agenda, which we'll talk more about that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting
Amen.
stuff.
Amen. Someone brought up a good point too in the chats. They said Beyonce also bought a church. Remember she bought a church recently. Justin Bieber has been recently talking about starting a church with the Hillsong, Carl Lentz, right? Well, Justin Bieber is also on Def Jam Records. Isn't that interesting? All right, so the last little couple of things I want to show you is some quotes and some things from a couple more pieces of evidences that are relevant to this conversation from Kanye. Kanye has expressed clearly to us that he believes that he is a God, okay? Here's the I Am a God Kanye West exhibition that happened in 2015. If you go to the next link, there's the famous quote from Kanye, I believe, is this one. He says, everybody says, who do you think you are? And I just told you who I thought that I was, a God. That's who I am. That's a clip from the actual interview right there. All right, next. There's actually a website dedicated to the quotes of Kanye. And we'll pull the link. I think the next one is the last link there is a link to that website where you can actually go and look at all these motivational quotes. There, believe it or not, there already is a religion being built around Kanye, whether you realize it or not. You can go and find it. These people say they say that Kanye's quotes, where if you have discernment, if you are in the Word and you know the Word and you apply it to your life, you're going to know that all these things that Kanye are saying are just blatantly prideful and arrogant and cocky and just terrible advice. But people are taking his pride and they're calling it confidence, and they're saying that it's a good thing and that Kanye's confidence is something we should all appreciate about him and follow suit with. I mean, it's just insane. I think there's like 100 quotes here from him. But if you just scroll down, you can look through
just real quick, and we're gonna talk about this in a little bit, because again, what I'm gonna be doing here in a little bit is focusing in on his recent words a week ago, that Apple Music interview, and in that interview, he actually says the same thing. Like he goes even further than this. He's like, "I'm the greatest artist that's ever lived," and everybody knows that. It's not even a question. Like, and that was a week ago, and this is not the kind of stuff that comes out of a true convert. That's not humility. That's not being humble. That's not being meek. All these things that what Yeshua actually told us how to act. So,
right. Yeah, look at that. I'm too busy writing history to read it, he says. We are all self-conscious. I'm just the first to admit it. That's not even true. One of the things says one of his biggest regrets in life is that he'll never get to see himself perform live. Uh, it's pretty crazy. A lot of interesting quotes. Right near the bottom, there's an interesting one. Oh, that one. Go up one more. That was a good one. Did you already see that one before? One more.
Oh,
One more. This one
up
right
here.
here. Yeah, people never change. They just become better at hiding who they really are.
Interesting.
Kanye West.
In your face, right in your face.
Right in your face. And then down at the bottom, there's one more I wanted to point out. Yeah, right there.
Where at? Up here?
Yeah, go a little bit at the bottom there. Yeah. Where is it? There he is. First, number 38. Sorry. Nothing in life is promised except death. Kanye West. Amen. There's the gospel of Kanye right there. All right. So I'm just going to close my part of this and we can jump into Adam's part, which is to me even more fascinating than this stuff. This is stuff that you guys should already know. This should have served as just a reminder for stuff that we've already been through. And for those who may have never heard this stuff before, you probably think that we're whack jobs, but if you want truth, you'll find it, and it's out there, and it's freely available. But what I believe is that Kanye's rise is symptomatic of a much bigger underlying issue. Christians don't know the entire gospel, right? And they don't know Messiah. They don't know his teachings, his parables, and his full purpose, right? Because they don't know the word. Why did he really even come? There's no context to the belief. Subsequently, they don't know what their own purpose is either, right? They only know, quote unquote, know that he died for their sins. What sins? What is sin? Why death? Why blood? Why resurrection? What is he doing now? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to respond? These are all questions that most Christians don't even know the answer to.
What does it mean to follow him? To pick up your cross daily and to deny your flesh and to follow him daily. We don't get any of that kind of stuff. And you're absolutely right. And Kanye isn't the problem. Like you said, the much bigger problem is the lukewarm doctrines that have continued to get colder and colder over the last century and a half or so. You did a really good video, The Great Bible Heist, how pretty much just doctrines just wildly changed in the mid 1800s with the dispensational movement. And it's just gotten worse and worse to a point today where it's like, you're right. What do people think the gospel is? Is you believe in this historical figure that's named Jesus Christ, that he died for your sins, and that's it. You just believe that happened, and that's it. There's no walk. There's no responsibility. There's no refinement. There's no there's nothing. It's just that's it. And if you want to point out if you want to point out sin, then you're judging me, and that's not the gospel, and you're adding works, and I don't want to have anything to do with that. It's so watered down. It's at such a point where it's so watered down that people are accepting his doctrine because that's where we're at. And he's just a spokesperson for this lukewarm gospel that's been preached over the last however many centuries.
Exactly, man. What it really boils down to is that Christianity itself has become nothing more than a consumer demographic. It's just a group of people identified by a very loose term who are used to sell products to, and most Christians are too busy living out their worldly lives to even notice that the doctrines that they're hearing in the music, even the Christian music they've been listening to for the last couple decades, isn't even in the Bible. Half of the stuff that when I get into a conversation with some Christians, sometimes they start quoting things to me that they think is gonna prove the point they're trying to make to me, and they end up quoting a scripture they end up quoting a lyric from a song that's not even in the Word. I think half of them don't even really know what's in the Word. It's driven by just memes of false wisdom generated by people who are just trying to sell you stuff. Essentially, it's become a prosperity doctrine, is what it is. And interestingly, Kanye was recently invited to Joel Osteen's congregation. We'll see if he actually accepts that. That'll tell you a lot, right? I'd be surprised if he doesn't actually. The Christianity as a movement, Christianity as a demographic, as an industry, is more concerned with what you will buy than who you are and how you live. Kanye is only a byproduct of a Christian consumer obsession, and ultimately, you are the one being purchased, not his album.
Something you didn't bring up, but that you and in our private discussions that I thought was fascinating is the possibility of Kanye actually maybe even believing that he's converted, maybe through like MK Ultra programming, because like kind of like how we started off. When you look at some of his words from a surface value, from a surface perspective, they seem pretty convincing. Do you think that he's a really good liar, or do you think that possibly maybe there was some MK Ultra programming and he's doing exactly what his handlers have taught him to do? Just before I go and segue into my part, I'm just curious if you can expound on that a little bit before we move on.
Yeah, man, I'm with you, bro. I really am. When I don't know how many of you guys have looked into, it goes back actually to the Disney methodology of raising children up and kind of programming children through what they're doing. If you looked into that, you've probably also looked into the MK Ultra experimentation, that again, publicly available information about a government program that is not a conspiracy. It actually has happened, and in my opinion continues to happen, although they act like it hasn't. And one of the common denominators we see with some people who deal with sort of mind control programming from a young age is that they always tend to have breakdowns. And that's why I have so many of these celebrities that have these strange breakdowns. They start acting strange in interviews and on stage, and just weird things happen. Well, Kanye had one of these breakdowns I think it was just last year. And actually, after he came out of rehab or whatever kind of center he was in, we saw that he had dyed his hair blonde.
Right, which is that's a huge marker.
It's a huge indicator of MK Ultra mind control programming. We see a lot of different celebrities who've done the same thing. They go away for a little while, they come back, and they're blonde now, and now they're doing what they're supposed to be doing again, and they're back on track. Kanye comes out of his rehabilitation of whatever kind he was in. His hair is blonde. He's being really quiet. He's not really saying much. He's hanging out with Donald Trump all of a sudden, and then here we are less than a year later. And actually, it was early this year, 2019, he started his Sunday services.
Right.
So it didn't take long for him to go from complete overhaul of his life and just complete mental breakdown to starting Sunday services. And actually, one of the first interviews he did when he got out of his rehab, you can see that in his interview he actually has the blonde hair, is with a radio personality named Charlemagne the God, and that's one of the people that Kanye chose to first go and sit with and talk about his rehab. So, yeah, man, I don't know if he knows better. Honestly, I honestly don't know.
You're right, because some of the things he says is pretty convincing, and you and I both agreed. We get it why people would be like, oh, he's got an album about Jesus, and he even says Yeshua in the album. Like, what else do I need to hear? That's it. I'm good. And then they start to hear some of the things he says. But again, when those little blinders go up, it goes right over people's heads. Which I know a lot of people watched this Apple Music interview. But I think a lot of things went over people's head, because if they didn't see some of these things, then I think that they were blinded to it, which, I'm going to show you in just a second.
Right.
But
yep.
Yeah.
One thing I can't agree with everybody else on is that we do need to pray for him. But we also need to be less focused on Kanye, and believe it or not, we're not doing all this because we want to focus on Kanye. We're doing all this so that you guys will stop focusing on Kanye.
Right.
I listened to his entire album. I watched all his interviews, and there's no reason why anybody should be listening to Kanye right now. If he is genuine, which I have a really hard time believing based on everything we've just discussed. If he is genuine, then he's definitely fallen into the wrong hands. I know he's already said he hired a Bible teacher to follow him around for a little while. He's already kind of palling around with some celebrities and stuff. So, I don't know. This goes right back into the prosperity doctrine. I think he's going to fall. Honestly, I think he's going to fall in with the Benny Hinn's and Joel Osteen's and even like Oprah Winfrey's of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. All right. We ready?
Yeah, man.
All right. So we're going to take a look at this Apple Music interview that Justin was talking about a little bit earlier. And there's a few things. You know what? I don't know if actually, I got to fix something real quickly. Hang on. So that I can capture the system audio. Give me just a moment. Capture.